Robin, and today I'm going to talk to you about your first creative painting kit, the beautiful Poppies and Daisies painting. Poppies and Daisies is a watercolor painting. That means you can easily blend the paint colors together and add depth to your painting by adding more layers of paint to an area. Keep in mind that watercolor paints are reactivated when wet. This means you can mix your colors in the palette, let them dry out, then come back later and use them just by adding water. When you open your kit leaflet, you'll see a list of materials in your kit and additional supplies to gather. The remaining pages of your leaflet guide you through the steps to paint the flowers. Be sure to read completely through each step before beginning to paint that step. Step 1 explains stretching your paper, then mounting on a hard surface and tracing the vellum outline drawing onto the watercolor paper using the graphite transfer paper. These are described in detail in the Painting Basics Guide and shown in detail in the free gifts video. In step 2, you'll see that the brush you'll use is listed at the beginning for easy reference. Next is a list of the colors you'll use. Each step gives the brush and color you'll use. This takes the guesswork out of it for you. If the color is a mix of paints, there's a color swatch given to you as a guide. Don't worry if you aren't able to mix this exact color. It's just a guide. No two paintings will ever be exactly alike, and that's okay. Your goal is to mix a color you like. Every step has a photo to show what is being painted for that step. The number of the step is in a black box in the upper left corner of the photo. Notice the artist's tips along the right-hand side of the page. These will give you extra guidance to successfully paint the picture. Today, I'm going to demonstrate the color mixing techniques used to paint Poppies and Daisies. You'll need to refer to your leaflet to complete the painting. You may wish to see how your mixed colors look and practice these techniques on the extra sheet of watercolor paper included in your kit. You can also just dive in and start painting. The extra piece of paper can also be used to paint another picture to give as a gift. Mixing the colors can be a lot of fun. Remember, every painting will be different and you can adjust colors to your taste if desired. The first color you'll mix is the reddish color for step 2. This color is used on the poppies. I can see that the painting uses a lot of this color, so I'll mix a lot. I'll use the size 10 round brush to pull some rose madder from the round well down into my mixing well. Then use the same brush to pull down twice as much orange. Don't worry about getting rose madder in your orange. It will be minimal. Now, pull the colors together and mix them. If the color looks like it needs more of one of the base colors, pull more down and mix it in. Once it's the way you like, paint some on your extra watercolor paper or scrap paper to see how it looks. Adjust as needed. The first time I painted this, my mix ended up being a little more orangey than the booklet, but it looked great. This mix needs to be diluted, so dip a brush in clean water and add to your palette. Add water a bit at a time until it's neither too dark or too light. It's better to err on the side of too watery at first because you can always deepen the color with more layers. Play around with it using your extra piece of paper until you think you have the right level of dilution. Now you're ready to paint. Don't worry if the paint dries before you're done using it. You can reactivate dry watercolor paint by adding water to the palette and rubbing gently with a paintbrush. If you would like to deepen the color in an area, just paint another layer of the same color in the same way you added the first layer. If the first layer has dried, go over the place where wet and dry areas meet with a clean, damp brush to prevent hard lines. The next mix you need is a purple color in step 7. This mix is used to add shading to the flower petals. Typically, you'll mix these colors as you paint the painting. Since this needs to be painted wet on wet, you might want to mix this at the same time you make your first mix. I'll explain what wet on wet means when I talk about techniques. Just add a little water if it begins to dry before you need it. This mixture of violet and cobalt blue will be used sparingly, so I won't mix very much. Again, I'll test it on watercolor paper when I think it's right. This is also diluted, so we need to add water with a clean brush. Look at the light green color swatch for step 11. This color is used to paint the flower centers, stems, and leaves. Which of the colors looks dominant? The mix is very yellow, so I'll squeeze out quite a bit of lemon yellow paint directly into a large slanted well. Squeeze some cobalt blue and yellow ochre into nearby round wells. Now dip a size 4 round brush into the blue paint and add it to the lemon and mix. I can see that I need a little more blue, so I'll repeat the process. Now I'm closer, and I need to add a little yellow ochre to get just the right color. When you think you have it, paint some on your extra watercolor paper or scrap paper to see how it looks and adjust as needed. For the darker green in stamens in step 12, use the same paint colors as in step 11, but we'll use twice as much cobalt blue. We'll use a lot of this mix, so be sure to make plenty. Note that the instructions say this mix isn't diluted, so we won't need to add water. You'll mix a couple of yellow shades for the daisy centers in steps 20 and 21, and a light green to shade the daisies for step 22. Follow the steps we've used for the other mixes to create these colors. Now, let's talk about the techniques you'll use. You can use the extra piece of watercolor paper in your kit to practice any step, get the feel of the brush required, or to see how your color will look. It's very helpful to do this, especially when you're first learning to paint and getting comfortable with the brushes and techniques. After a few paintings, you'll find you need to do this less and less. Drawing the paint means using the tip of the bristles to pull paint along the paper. This is used in step 2 to paint a poppy petal. I'm starting at the edge of the petal and drawing paint down toward the center. In step 3, we'll drop in paint wet on wet at the lower half of the petal and allow the colors to bleed together. Just lightly tap the tip of the brush to the paper in a short dotting motion. The color will spread onto the first color, which is still wet, for a unique blend of new colors. For more control, use only small amounts of paint at a time. Use a cotton swab, rag, or paper towel to dab away any excess paint. You lift out highlights by pressing a clean, damp brush or paper towel into an area of wet paint to absorb some of the paint off the paper. When you remove some paint, that area is lighter, creating highlights. This is done in step 4 of your painting. You can repeat this process until you achieve the desired look. At this point, you'll allow your painting to dry so that the paint won't mix when you paint the next step. Continue to follow the directions in your leaflet using these techniques. Watercolor paints often form a hard line around the edge as they dry. To avoid paints drying in a hard line, while the paint is still wet, lift out some paint from the edge with a clean, damp brush or dab the edge with a paper towel. This will absorb some of the paint for a softer appearance. Don't lift out too much or you'll create a highlight. Occasionally, your creative painter projects will have you paint a background color around the main subject. Poppies and Daisies has a pretty blue background beginning in step 18. Following the instructions for step 18, use your size 10 round brush to wet your paper with clean water around the flowers and stems. Just a small area at a time. Just go as close as you can without touching the painted areas. Drop in very diluted cobalt blue by lightly touching a little color to the wet area. Color will then bleed to create a pale, hazy background. Draw down the color to meet the previously painted flowers and stems. Soften the edges by lifting out some paint with a clean, damp brush or paper towel. As you can see, you'll paint the background in one small area at a time, not the entire background at once. To paint the sepals of the seed pod in step 25, you'll use the size 4 round brush. This is a very small brush, so it's perfect for painting the fine lines and dots. To keep your brush shaped to a finely pointed tip, pull bristles through paint on your palette while gently rolling the brush handle between your thumb and forefinger. Use a very light touch and keep your brush perpendicular to the paper while painting delicate details. Thank you for painting with me today. Enjoy finishing your painting. Frame it and display proudly in your home. See you next time.